Right, so Tory conference is thankfully over. Will we have to ever tolerate another Rishi Sunak-led washout like that again before the next election? I somehow doubt it, not least of which after that speech, after this spectacle. I'll be amazed if Sunak is still leader by next autumn. Sunak's speech was a blame game from end to end, with all the grit and determination of a sixth form debate club newbie, but putting his completely unelected wife, with all the scandal that has come out in recent months because of her, just served to remind us that no matter how much blame Sunak wants to apportion to others, much of the mess he's made is for himself and his reputation amongst voters, sponsored by Infosys even, as he seems to be. Well, Akshata Murthy's presence just served to remind us all of that before Sunak himself even uttered a single word. It seems to me that Sunak firmly believes now that lies don't matter, as long as his lies dominate those of the opposition. Right, so Sunak's speech began even before he'd made it to the stage himself, as he began with a word from his sponsors, also known as his wife, Akshata Murthy, she of the Infosys shares fame. New oil and gas licences in the North Sea. Oh, yes, please. Oh, look, Infosys have IT contracts with Shell and BP. Budget sweetener for childminders, doubled if they sign up to a chosen government provider, one of which Sunak's wife happens to have shares in. Oh, the coincidence. Non-dom status, despite being married to the then Chancellor Rishi Sunak, living here in the UK, had children here in the UK in order to avoid paying tax on those Infosys shares. Whoops! What an oversight, silly me. What am I like? And Sunak tried to tell us he could be trusted with the nation's purse strings whilst denying any knowledge of his own household finances. Akshata Murthy taking the stage ahead of her husband simply served to remind us all about all of that, about Sunak's own role in things, and might not have been the endearing, saccharine, sweet puff piece it was intended to be. For many, it was a reminder of just how deceitful, particularly when it comes to his own personal wealth, that Sunak can be. For a conference that has been marked by gaffe after gaffe, from Steve Barclay going transphobe in blocking trans women from female wards and declaring a war on pronouns amongst health workers, to Michael Gove claiming the NHS is getting that £350 million a week extra that was written on the side of Bozo's bus, to Mark Harper claiming local councils will stop you going shopping when you want to, lies and conspiracy theories and madness so blatant you must have the IQ of a mushroom to believe any of it. All of it about as honest as one of Nadim Zahawi's tax returns, combined with all the humanity of the Terminator. Sunak went into that speech basically having already lost the next election, and he put the final nail in the coffin with that speech. Keir Starmer will be dancing with glee off the back of that, and as much as I still believe polls will tighten the more people get to see of Starmer as intensely dislikable and wooden and indeed dishonest as he is, Sunak, I don't think, is capable of leading a Tory party that can hope for anything more than damage limitation anymore. He can't win. Look at it this way. He's had two factions within his own party produce rival manifestos that they want him to sign up to. You can't please both, even if he intends to please one over the other. So that's more enemies, more division within his own ranks. As far as speeches go, this conference will be remembered for the insanity of Liz Truss and the rabid hatred espoused by Suella Braverman, whose faction, the ERG, has basically been pulling Sunak's strings from day one that he got the job. She and her ilk have pulled Sunak ever rightwards, so that now that the hard right fringe of the Conservative Party, which used to be kept on the outside, well, they're now the mainstream of the Conservative Party. So it isn't hard when you look at Starmer and how right-wing he's become, how he's followed on with things, despite still being called a lefty by some commentators, basically being viewed by those of us with perhaps a bit more of a critical eye for him and his carbon copy in female form Rachel Reeves as being the next David Cameron and George Osborne, though hopefully minus the pig's head. Sunak had his major announcements in his speech, though, didn't he? Though most had already been leaked to the press, so they weren't too surprising. HS2 is now going to stop at Birmingham. It might as well now stop at Watford for all the money that has been spaffed on it and the waste of time and energy it now is. Apparently the money saved, though, will be used for other infrastructure projects. But where? Where's the detail? Where's the white paper about that? You've made an announcement on this. Where's the basis for it? Where is it written down in black and white somewhere? Well, it doesn't. It isn't, because it doesn't exist. Let's look at what he said about schools instead then. A-levels and T-levels are getting scrapped to be replaced by something he's calling an Advanced British Standard, or ABS, and now our kids are aspiring to earn qualifications named after a braking system. Well, the irony hasn't been lost on me. For 13 years of Tory rule, the brakes have well and truly been applied to this country, and to hope and to aspiration and to economic benefits of us all. Students studying at that level will now also have to study 5 subjects instead of 3, and some form of English or maths study will be compulsory until age 18. This will obviously need more teachers then, obviously. Instead of paying the ones we still have that are hanging in on the job and haven't left in disgust and despair, it's now a 30k bribe to new teachers over the first 5 years of their careers. It didn't take long for this to be completely shredded by teaching union the NEU, who have helpfully pointed out that the country is currently short of 4,300 maths teachers and 2,600 English teachers. And Sunak's new qualification and new plans and all this extra education he says he wants to bring in would require another 5,300 teachers across the board. Where are they coming from? Also, and possibly more to the point, that fiddling once again with qualification reform, where are these kids going to be taught when schools are still falling down around their ears due to rack concrete issues? Nothing said about that whatsoever. Again, just as with the HS2 announcement, there's no sound basis for any of it though. No plans, no budget. It doesn't exist. Then on health, he spoke about banning smoking. Tax revenue from the tobacco industry for the last year was £10 billion in the UK. If you think Sunak, a Tory, will happily lose that, you really don't understand the Tories. You were born yesterday. Greed is their god, money is their idol. They won't intentionally ditch it, no matter what the benefits of doing so to the health of the nation might be. Besides which, you might sense a theme here, there's again no white paper, no plan, nothing written down, even on the back of a fag packet, outlining how this would be delivered. If you're buying into any of what has been said at this conference, whether it be by Sunak or by one of his other minions, you've been smoking something a little bit stronger than tobacco. It's funny he can bleat about stuff like this though, but not more money for ordinary people to help us and boost the economy as us going out and spending it does. Cost of living crisis is still going on. Inflation isn't a tax. He needs to keep being reminded of that lie of his, of course. So how are you helping us out, given that you've all this money for all these infrastructure and legislative projects, apparently, somewhere, down the back of your own sofa, possibly, you're rich enough, projects that'll take years to deliver, even if you do mean them, yet no cash for anything that we actually need help with right now, like putting food in bellies and roofs over heads. Nothing meaningful is changing. You're not promising to change anything that we actually need to change, that we want to see change. And yet, despite having been in power for 13 years, you preposterously announce that you either think this country needs change or you don't, but if you do, you should vote Conservative. Well, we've certainly seen change. You've chased off the people who kept our essential services running, defunded those services as well, have driven the disabled and long-term sick to their deaths, and tens of thousands of others as well through pandemic mishandling. You've lied, you've cheated, and you've obfuscated, leaving an economy that has now been flatlining for years and made things even worse by ballsing up our exit from the EU. So sure, things have changed, and it's such a rotten, despairing shame that should we hopefully get you out of power, the party taking over, in all likelihood, won't do any different from what you're doing now. Sunak's speech was actually so bad, it was criminal at one point. And as if to underline that, he's even been reported to the police over it. He thought it funny to say of former SNP leader and First Minister Nicola Sturgeon wanted to go down in the history books as the woman who broke up our country, but it now looks like she may go down for very different reasons. Really? Well, Sturgeon was obviously arrested in relation to SNP finances back in June. We know about that. She was also released without charge. But Sunak had to have a dig at that, make a joke in relation to his commitment to the union. Now this case, however, is ongoing still. It's a live investigation, and Sunak making such a comment about it as this, crass, even if intended as a joke, places him potentially in contempt of court, much like Suella Braverman found herself just last week defending the police officer facing charges for fatally shooting an unarmed black man, while that case is ongoing. He's been reported to Police Scotland in relation to this speech of his by the Alba party, so it'll be interesting to see if that goes anywhere. It's got more chance in Scotland, I dare say, than it would if the Met were investigating, I fancy. Besides, innocent until proven guilty and all of that, Rishi. Mr. 2 fixed penalty notices for breaking the law as proven in your own case. Hey, come the next couple of weeks, we'll quite possibly see a leadership challenge, I reckon. I think it's looking likelier than ever, especially if Labour get a boost in the polls off their conference, or even more hilariously, if they got a boost off of this one. I really can't see how the Tories have benefited from this absolute shambles. Rishi Sunak himself certainly hasn't. As ever, do join in the conversation on this. What are your thoughts on Tory conference and this latest example of Tory idiocy from their mandateless, unelected burk of a leader? Agree with my thoughts or no? If not, what are your own thoughts? Do tell me. Let me know. I always like to read them and find out what my viewers are thinking. But thank you very much for watching anyway. I hope you found the video useful. Please like, share and subscribe if you did. More content out daily. Meanwhile, here's a video recommendation where ahead of this conference, Sunak decided to attack doctors who were going on strike again. Once more having to strike to save the service, underfunded and understaffed as it is. But despite that staffing crisis, Sunak thinks threatening them with the sack is the answer. Well, where are you getting their replacements then from? He's an idiot. We need rid of him. And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.